Have charged Kennedy with the murder of his live-in girlfriend, 23-year-old Adrianna Taylor. Her family reported Taylor missing after they hadn't seen her since early October. Their worst fears were realized on Thanksgiving. Her body lay in a shallow grave in a backyard in Pennsylvania. Cleveland police received a warrant for Kennedy's arrest the following day.
Thanksgiving night. A quiet block in Wilkinsburg, Pennsylvania. A neighbor's doorbell camera blinks awake. Hours later, police officers walk into a backyard with shovels and flashlights. The ground looks disturbed, the cement doesn't seem finished, and underneath it, detectives will find the answer to a question Cleveland had been asking for weeks. What happened to 23-year-old Adrianna Kiri Taylor? Adrianna was just 23, reported missing by her family on November 13, 2022, after weeks of silence. Her last known contact came on October 8. Her aunt and cousin had gone 5 weeks without hearing from her. By mid-November, they could no longer ignore the silence, and they made the report. To them, Adrianna wasn't just a young woman. They described her as light-hearted, funny, someone who made the best of every situation. A cousin said she was just good to be around. She had a good attitude. She made the best of everything. But for her family, worry was now shifting into fear. What began as unanswered calls had turned into something far more ominous. 36 days had passed. 36 days without any message, without any sighting, without a trace of her car around Cleveland. Those weeks became the silence investigators would later scrutinize, and the gap her family still struggles with. The story could have ended as just another unsolved missing person report. But a tip from Pennsylvania would change everything. In Wilkinsburg, nearly 130 miles from Cleveland, a neighbor's Ring doorbell camera recorded suspicious activity. A car pulled up. A man stepped out, opened the trunk, pulled out a large bag, and carried it toward the backyard. The images weren't clear enough to provide every detail, but they were disturbing enough to prompt a call to police. That tip put investigators on the path to the discovery that Cleveland had been dreading. On November 24, 2022, Thanksgiving night, police began searching the yard at a house in the 800 block of Hill Avenue in Wilkinsburg. At first glance, the backyard looked ordinary, but officers noticed patches of fresh cement, some hardened, some still damp. When they broke through, they found something buried underneath. Inside a tote bag, placed inside a larger construction bag, hidden beneath layers of concrete, was the body of Adrianna Taylor. The Allegheny County medical examiner confirmed what her family had feared. She had been killed by a gunshot wound to the head. Her death was ruled a homicide. The discovery was devastating. It also raised more questions than answers. Why Pennsylvania? Why this particular property? And who had both the means and the motive to transport Adrianna across state lines? Investigators soon found a link. Adrianna had been living in Cleveland with her boyfriend, 43-year-old Anthony Maurice Kennedy. The Wilkinsburg property, according to records, was tied to his family. His sister had lived there. Kennedy himself had previously lived in Pennsylvania. Now prosecutors believed he had used that connection to hide Adrianna's body. The day after the body was recovered, police focused their investigation on Kennedy. By November 28th, just 4 days later, Cleveland police obtained a warrant charging him with aggravated murder. 2 days after that, on November 30th, Kennedy surrendered. He walked into a Pittsburgh police station with his attorney and turned himself in. He was placed in handcuffs and booked on aggravated murder charges. For investigators, it brought an end to the manhunt. For Adrianna's family, it was just the beginning of a long legal process. The indictment that followed was broad and unforgiving. Kennedy was charged with 13 felony counts. These included 2 counts of aggravated murder, 2 counts of murder, 2 counts of felonious assault, aggravated robbery, grand theft, aggravated theft, tampering with evidence, and offenses against a human corpse. Each charge was rooted in receipts investigators believed they had, from the disappearance to the concealment. Prosecutors in Cuyahoga County signaled that they would pursue the case with everything available to them. But the story didn't end in suspense. In June 2023, the case came to court. On June 14th, Kennedy pleaded guilty. Judge Timothy McCormick handed down the sentence, life in prison with parole eligibility after 20 years. Adrianna's family sat in the courtroom, hearing the words that confirmed the man responsible for her death would not walk free anytime soon. The plea brought finality to the case, sparing her loved ones a drawn-out trial. But for the community, and especially for her family, it did not answer the deeper question: why? Court documents provide no motive. Prosecutors did not offer one. And so the reasons behind Adrianna's death remain hidden, just as her body had been buried beneath layers of concrete. What the record does show is that Kennedy had a violent past. In 2019, WIO Cleveland reported on a domestic violence case in which he had been convicted of strangling a different victim. That history is part of the public record. It does not explain Adrianna's death, but it underscores a chilling reality. Patterns of violence often escalate. For families, for friends, for law enforcement, early warning signs matter. And there are systemic lessons too. This case illustrates how technology, the Ring doorbell camera, became an unexpected witness. Without that footage, without a neighbor willing to alert police, the concealment under concrete might have gone undiscovered for months, maybe longer. It also highlights the complexity of jurisdiction. A young woman is killed in Cleveland, her body is transported to Pennsylvania. Which court has authority? Which department takes the lead? In this case, the answer was Ohio, because prosecutors argued the homicide occurred there, even though the burial happened out of state. Finally, there's the importance of documenting silence. Adrianna was last heard from on October 8th. She wasn't reported missing until November 13th. Families often wait, hoping loved ones will turn up. But as this case shows, every day matters. Those 5 weeks of silence became central to the investigation, a key marker in the timeline prosecutors would later present. For Adrianna's loved ones, the pain is permanent. Her aunt, her cousin, and her extended family remember her not by the headlines, but by the person she was: funny, bright, and full of life. In interviews, her relatives described her as someone who lit up every room she entered, and that is the memory they hold on to, even as the case has closed. The conviction of Anthony Kennedy does not erase what happened. It does not replace Adrianna's absence, but it does offer a measure of justice. He is serving life in prison. He will not walk free for at least 2 decades, if ever. And for her family, that matters. This case also carries a message for anyone watching. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, please reach out. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is available 24/7 at 1-800-799-SAFE. You are not alone. Help is available. Adrianna Taylor's story is one of silence broken, a mystery answered, and a community left to grapple with loss. From Cleveland to Wilkinsburg, from a missing person report to a backyard discovery, her name is now etched into the record. She was 23 years old. She was loved, and she deserved far more than the ending she received. So I'll end with this question for you, the viewer. Which part of this case struck you most? The role of technology, the attempt to bury evidence under concrete, or the cross-state investigation that finally brought answers? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because your perspective matters in keeping Adrianna's story alive. And if you value stories told with facts, receipts, and respect, subscribe and join us for the next case. Adrianna Kiri Taylor, 23 years old, gone too soon. May her memory be a blessing, and may her story remind us all of the urgency of speaking up, paying attention, and never letting silence hide the truth.